Okay, let's add another sheet and add a multi-view drawing for one of the parts. We'll add the train body, so I'm going to add a sheet. I'm going to right-click, rename this the train body. And then, how did I hit that? We'll have another sheet. I'm going to double-click on train body to make sure I'm on the correct page. And then I'm going to insert, hit insert again. And then I want to be on the Part Studio area. If for some reason it defaults to the assemblies because you've already done an assembly, just make sure you have to get back to the Part Studios where you model your part. If you have more than one Part Studio, you'd be able to select that here. But you should have modeled everything inside one tab, one Part Studio. Although there might be a few of you that I did see start new Part Studios and model second, third, fourth pieces in different places. So just be mindful of that. We're in Part Studios and I'm in Part Studio 1. Okay, so I'm looking for the train body, and I want to bring on, let's see, I'm trying to remember which way I did it. I think I want to go I want my train body, I decided, pointing to the right. And I'm going to use a side view, even though it's not called the front, right? In Onshape, the way I modeled it relative to the planes, this is called the left view. But I'm thinking about the quote-unquote front view being the most descriptive, single best view to understand the object. And this becomes, in a multi-view drawing, what we refer to as the front view. So this is like my base view. So I'm going to use that one. It's the most descriptive view. And I don't need to have a bottom view. I'm going to show this. I'm going to show the top, kind of looking down. So I'm going to go here. And then I'm going to project. Automatically, it's ready to project one view. I'm going to go straight up. And then if I want to project more views from here, the project view button is already on. But I do have to go select this view again. And then I'm going to go to the right. That'll show the front of the train. I'm going to select this, my base view, and go this way to show the back of the train body. And then I'm going to add an isometric up here. So I'm going to click that, and by going diagonally, up and right, I get the front, top, right isometric. And that one will be my shaded one. All of the orthographics where we're going to add dimensions, they should not be, this tool is still turned on. I'm going to hit escape to turn it off, and right click and say show shaded view for just that one view. Okay? Now, before I even start adding dimensions, I'm going to use the center mark to just click on any of the holes so that I get the little center mark inside the holes. That gives me the ability to dimension to the centers more easily. Holes have to be located, which takes 2 dimensions to locate them, a horizontal dimension and a vertical dimension, before they're sized. And I guess while we're talking about that, let's go ahead and maybe do the holes. So instead of the standard dimension tool I have right here, we have this tool. There's a little symbol for diameter and depth. That's our hole callout. And clicking on a hole and pulling away, as long as you had used the hole tool. Now, if you had made a sketch and sketched a circle and then done an extrude remove, the details of a hole, like a diameter depth, are not both going to be stored there, or threads, etc. But if you did start a sketch with a single point and then use the hole tool to define the diameter and depth of the hole, that information is already stored there. Okay, so I don't need on this one. Let's say I'm going to bring this down. I may have to move some of these around. I'll have to figure out later where exactly I want them to sit. I'm just going to do one of each, though. I've got to find a place that. Okay. Again, I can move those around. Now, this hole, there are 4 of them. 2 on this side, 2 on the opposite side. This one, there are 3 of them. I don't need to have the whole note on all holes. What I'm going to do is I'm going to double click on that. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to have the ability to edit. You can see in gray, that's the information that it's populating. But I actually have the ability to put a prefix and a suffix against that note. And I think it's going to put it like right up against that 5. So I'm going to hit spacebar a couple times to make sure I get some spaces. And I'm going to do a capital X for times and then a 3. And that is going to note that this there is repeated 3 times. Okay? And then on this one, we can do the same thing with X4. And it even lets you see a live preview here as you're typing. So if you think you need more or less spaces, just to make it look right, you can add that. So. All right. Let me see with this one. I don't think I can edit that. We really had that say 0.25 on the drawing sheet. We modeled a depth of 0.25. It's interesting that this shows up as 0.207. I've seen that before. So we'll leave that alone though. We could make a new note and edit it. Now, I have another video that's going to show how to change the text size, so I guess I won't take the time to show that, but there is a video that shows how these fonts are maybe bigger than we want them to be, and you can edit them. I went ahead and adjusted my font size, which you can see how to do in another video in the playlist already, just to give myself a little more space. Okay. So now we're going to use the dimension tool, and the very first thing you want to do is always provide the overall dimensions. So I'm going to start with those. And I want to try to choose, if I get the overall width here, I want to choose a point or a line segment where that point, the end point is such that my extension line will get a little gap. Like I don't want to choose this. Because then my extension line is going to run all the way down to here. So I want to choose kind of like that point is like the highest point, because my dimension is going to sit right up here. And then the most right edge is here, but I want a point at the top since I'm pulling that dimension this way. So notice how I get that little break of my extension line between the part. So the longest dimension should be the furthest from the part, so that I can have smaller dimensions that nest in between, in between this dimension and the part itself. I also want the dimension to sit between views, because whether I look at the side view of the train or the top view of the train, I should be able to see, in essence, kind of the length of the train, right? So since they share that dimension, and we're not going to add the dimension twice on both views, we just have it sit here in between the views like that. Okay? So now, really side to side on your paper, we're going to think of this as widths. So there's my width, my overall width. My overall height of the train can be seen either from the back, this view, or the front, right? Let's see. Because they don't really place a vertex there for you to do that easily. So, and the drawing sheet that we had really didn't need that. So, I think we really just want the radius of this top, and then this dimension right here. The overall height is really the sum of this and that radius. Now, if I want to make it obvious that the center of this arc is concentric to this hole, I may use the line tool, and I'm going to zoom way in. I'm going to make a line that starts right at the end of that arrow tip. Then I'm going to zoom way in here to the center, and I'm going to have this line go right to the center. And that is going to be a way to communicate, kind of extending this leader line, if you will, to say, hey, the center of that arc, since it's not as obvious, since it's concentric to a hole that's already marked, is that center point. Okay, and that should help. I'm going to move that a little bit because I don't like that leader line kind of overlapping that arc. That looks a little messy to me. So I now know the height of basically the center of that arc. So that gives me the radius. Okay, I've got the height and the radius, these two, and that determines the overall height of my train. The overall depth is this distance side to side here, which can be seen either here or here. Either one, it really doesn't matter what view you put it in. Maybe I'll do it in this one. Let's see how my dimension tool is turned off. So I'm going to choose that point and that point, and I'm going to put it up here. This area here is kind of considered in between views, or you could do it on the top view and pull it, kind of it'd be vertical right up here, if you can see from this view. All right, so those are my overall dimensions. I've got the overall width, the overall height is kind of understood through a couple things, and then this is the overall depth. If we think of this as the front, top right, we're thinking width, depth, and height. Okay, so then you get into dimensioning all the smaller features. Starting with width, the big widths of the big body, we need to understand kind of there's two sections here, right? From kind of the engineer's area compartment, this section, and then the rest of the train. Now, I don't have to put, and I shouldn't put, both of these dimensions because there is only one number that would add to 1.75 to make the 5.5. So by having the 5.5 and the 1.75, this 3.75 is understood or known that it can be determined through subtraction. So we're not going to list it. So for this feature of kind of where's the divide between this section and this cylindrical section, that provides me really both lengths. Okay, I do have this whole feature that I need to understand where it is, but I'm going to do that in a different view. I'll do that from the top view, where you want to dimension holes generally in the view where you can see them as a circle. Okay, these holes down below, that's something I need to understand horizontally where they occur at. So let's dimension those. I could dimension them from the two different sides. I guess that's the problem with web-based stuff. Sometimes it there's the center. Okay. So I'll move my leader line to get that out of the way, but that's 1 inch. I think the drawing sheets that we used to make the train showed them both dimensioned from the back instead of, the front one near the front, so we could do that. And this idea of having multiple things all dimensioned from the same reference line or same end is called baseline dimensioning as a technique, as opposed to chain dimensioning. So chain dimensioning would be, let's delete that and show. Chain dimensioning would be this style, where I chain the dimensions together, where they are kind of, where I end one dimension, that's where the next dimension starts, and I'm chaining them together, and I'd work down the part. So features are getting dimensioned or referenced off of a previous feature. Okay, so that's chain dimensioning versus baseline dimensioning. Both techniques are totally fine, so this is okay too. I don't have to adjust it or anything. I can leave it like that. I actually, because I may get rid of this note and decide that I want to put it on. I don't like that that's crossing over, put it on the front one and be able to drag it this way. And that note is more complicated because it's a threaded hole, and that's why they've got the extra little dash line around it. It's because it's threaded, and this 1/4 -20 is the thread notes. And so that's what that's there for. All right, so the holes have been located horizontally. This feature right here has not been located horizontally. So I need a center mark. Any radius, you'd want to click on the radius, the arc, okay, and that'll locate the center of that arc. So I want to locate that, and then horizontally, I'll go from, maybe I'll do it on the top, from here to that center mark. There, I can show that that's horizontally at 0.25. So I've located that feature, I've located that, I've located that, I've located, I think, everything horizontally, right? All right. Within this view, now let's transition to maybe locating those things vertically. Okay, so the height of this, I'll do it, since it's more on the left, I'll do it. It doesn't really want to, at first, locate that center mark. So if I hover and kind of highlight the arc first and then come back to it, it will find it. So I wanted the height of that, and I want the height of these holes, right? And I probably could let people assume that they are the same. It's not always good to assume things. If it's not marked, it's probably going to be assumed, but we could go ahead and explicitly list both of them, since there's a pretty good span between them, just to make sure it's clear that they're at the same height. So we've now located the height of this. We've located the height of these holes. Locating the height of this is this cylindrical feature I'm going to do in the view where I can see that as an arc or a circle, okay, instead of from the side, and that'll help me understand this height. The only other thing in this view I think that I haven't dimensioned, because it wasn't a hole, was its arc. So I'll use the regular dimension tool, not the hole tool, and I will choose this arc and get the leader line that gives me the radius of that arc. So there's a lot of dimensions already, but that should provide all the information I need on that view. All right, if I come over here, I need the height of these holes. I'm gonna leave the other one off and let people assume, right, and understand they're the same. I need the height of that. I need a center mark. I need to locate the center of this cylindrical feature. I'm going to do that from the bottom. And I can start playing around here with moving these around to make myself have more space. I need to understand the dimension of that, the radius of that cylindrical part. So let's see. I've got the heights of these holes, the height of that, the height of this cylinder. I've got the arc or the radius of the cylinder. I've already provided the height of that one over on the back side instead of the front side. It's kind of understood probably that that's centered, but now horizontally we want to understand where these things are. So horizontal distances are going to go from this left edge. Really, I think I'm going to grab that extension line. If I go ahead and get the center, it'll go right through that little hole for the cow catcher, and so that'll help me understand that those are horizontally aligned. See, this note's kind of in my way, so I'm going to move it. All right, and this one probably, again, could be safe to assume that it's symmetrical to the other one, but we can get that dimension as well. And I'll try to move this out of the way so it's not overlapping that set of extension lines and dimension lines. You're always trying to move the leader lines and see if you can find the best place to angle it in so that it doesn't overlap and cut through other dimensions. Okay, just kind of buy yourself more space. Bottom line is you're trying to make your document as reader-friendly as possible, so the lines don't start crisscrossing too much. Okay, so there from the front, I think I've horizontally located all the little holes for the cow catcher. I've horizontally located that. I've vertically located everything, so I'm pretty good there. On the back, I got the height, but that was it, right? So let's locate this hole horizontally. And that one's already been located vertically because that was part of me getting and understanding the height of the train body. So there's that. I do have this feature that's cut out, but I've already understood its location and size from this view over here, so I don't need to do anything with that. Oh, you know what? I do need to understand what I left off here is this kind of rectangular region here on the front. I need to understand the height of that rectangle. I do know the overall width is, so that's another dimension I'm going to try to squeeze in somewhere, right? So I have to play around with those. I'm going to try to have the numbers not, have them staggered so that they don't run into each other as well as much. Okay, yes, I had forgotten. I just kind of over there, I'd realized I don't have the height of that. So now if I was making the sketch, I kind of understand. I'd have a rectangular region and then this arc region. I understand they're both sides. As this one, it needed a height and a width, which I have is the 2 inches. So, and then the center mark here of the cylinder, I need to understand where it is vertically and horizontally, which I've done. So I've got the 1.375 for the height, and I've got the 1 for the width. Okay. So I think the only thing I'm missing is understanding this hole here. And I've already got the diameter and depth. I just need to locate it. So I'm going to do that from the front of the train. And then from the side of the train. So now I've located where the center mark is. Now I understand up here from the whole note the diameter and depth. And there's one last thing. I am going to use a regular note tool. I'm going to make a leader line. And I'm going to type a note here that all edges fillet 0, I think it was 0.01, or was it 0.1 inches. Okay, so I'm going to add that note. That's just kind of pointing to a corner. You see all these kind of double edges, right? And that's because of kind of the overall dimension, but this is in this little region. That is where that fillet was taking place, that is rounding over, and this thin line is the transition from the curved area to the flat area. So I think that is fully dimensioned.